What's up, everybody? It's your boy NoisySauce here, back with another podcast. And today we got two special guests up in here somewhere. I can't point. Yeah, that way. We got Riley Pining
Hello.
here, and we got John Darbisi up in here. Oh, sorry,
Hello.
Riley Michael and John Compa
Whichever.
up in here. And
Hello.
and obviously we got our boy Tiny Vessels up the corner there, aka Trav. And me, Lockie NoisySauce.
Shit, yeah. I thought that I should ask the most important question of all, and that's what everyone's drinking tonight.
True.
Okay.
Does everyone have a...
I've
Little
got a
cheeky
label
plug.
ready to go.
Cheeky alcohol plug.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Well, I'll start. I've got the Bleeding Heart Shiraz.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Ah, that's a nice one.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. I believe you were there when I bought it, Lockie, actually.
I was.
It's quite a nice drop.
John, what have you got?
I have got a Barrel and Vine Shiraz 2018.
Ooh, nice.
Very nice.
Good on the
It's a
mouth.
nice drop. Full bodied oak flavour.
Riley,
Yep.
what do you got?
I've got Off the Press Shiraz.
Ah.
I picked it up from a 4 for 40 deal at Liquorland about 4 days ago.
Hey, 4 for 40, 4
And,
days ago.
Oh,
That's it. So it's delicious and financially efficient.
Oh, good. I got myself the Magic Box Amazing Cabernet with a purple
Very
label.
nice.
Sorry, I got to get that in the right spot. Yeah. So yeah, we got it. We got a bit of everything up in here.
That's it.
So today we're going to be talking about music composition because we've already really gone over what myself and Trav do, but we'll go over it again. And I'm interested to hear what you guys do because, John, you're in a band.
Yep.
Tell us about
correct.
that.
Been in the band now for I think it's 5 years now. Crazy now. We're a like funky rock blues type band, kind of deriving, influences from like 70s, 80s, and into like today's modern stuff. Kind of like a mix between Chili Peppers and Rage Against the Machine. Again, mixed with some new indie rock type stuff. But yeah, it's going well. Like we've got one full EP out as the Colbys, and one single. And we used to be known as another band years ago. We had to change the name due to copyright reasons.
Ooh.
Ouch.
Yeah, since we've been the
Sounds
Colbys, we've actually it was weird. We kind of had like a rebirth.
Mm-hmm.
Like beforehand, it was we were playing gigs and just we recorded a few songs. But then when we got when we became the Colbys, it was like I said, kind of like a rebirth, and we had a new fire to go out there and so that's why it doesn't feel like 5 years because we kind of re-imaged ourselves after 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going well, man. I love it. I love playing music, love playing live, love jamming with those guys. They're such an easy bunch to jam with. Yeah, love it. Just can't wait to get back out there and play after all this.
And what do you do in the band? You didn't tell us what you're...
I play drums.
Yeah.
Play drums. Yeah.
Cool. So,
And he plays them well.
What do you even do?
What do I do?
what
I play
part
drums.
do you play?
I played the drums.
Cool.
We're a 4-piece.
And apart from that, what's your other musical endeavors that you got going on?
I've been producing for like 8 or 9 years now. I studied audio years ago, and that got me into. I never really got into electronic music until I got into producing. I kind of learned how to DJ, learned how to play bunch of dance music, playing at parties, playing at clubs.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't really appreciate electronic music until I saw people's reaction to it. But yeah, got just been producing a bunch. Dabbled a bit in like EDM, techno. Did a bit of dubstep for a bit. That was
Nice.
cool. Did some.
I think everyone did for like 10 minutes.
Yeah, for like 10. Yeah,
Yeah.
it did not last long. When you compare it to like really good dubstep producers, it's hard to get there.
Yeah.
And yeah, like just a bunch of stuff. Did like hip hop, did like flume type stuff.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, like dabbled a bit in that. Just anything and everything really.
Yeah.
And I can play. I've played keys in a band before, So I kind of have my piano chops up a little bit, like play melodies and chords, chord progressions. I'd much rather play than like draw stuff in.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty much it. Just anything.
Do you go under any name for your producer?
I have, but I haven't really uploaded anything under that name for a while. I used to be just known as Compa or John Compa.
Yeah.
But these days I've just been producing more music without a new name or anything yet. Me and Riley have actually been trying to work on this little duo thing that we're trying to work on, because we both kind of like the same music, and we kind of want to just vibe off each other. We've worked together before a couple times now and actually gelled quite well together. But yeah, that's my jam.
Cool. We've already got a couple of comments. One says, "Oh hey snakes," and that I'm just gonna quickly jump in and explain to everybody in the crowd who doesn't know. All of us work together as a AV company, so we
Sexy building.
We do spend a lot of time together, and a lot of people in the chat are there, and we're so lovingly referred to as the Mad Snakes crew, so that's where that comes from. And Not Daniel says Compa, and that's Daniel Lee.
I was saying not. Is that not Daniel?
Well, that's his name. Is not Daniel, but it is Daniel.
Everyone but Daniel just
it's
said
not
that.
Daniel. Yeah,
It's not a trick.
Okay.
And
cool.
Riley,
Yeah.
do you want to tell us about your little duo thing and everything else you've been doing as well?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I guess just piggybacking off what John was saying. We've like in the in the year or so that I've been a part of this like little work family that we've got going on. John and I sort of worked out pretty quickly some of our strengths and weaknesses in terms of producing music, and we found out that very quickly that we sort of gelled really well. We had a couple of days together where we're both just sending each other stuff back and forth. John ended up coming over to mine for a couple of days here and there, and we just managed to bang some stuff out really fast, really organically. It was good for me as well, because I up until then I had sort of had a bit of a lull in terms of my own sort of producing and composing. I found I felt like I guess I'm the kind of my kind of the way I work is I get inspired very heavily, but in terms of actually starting stuff myself is sort of where I am a little bit weaker. So, going from sort of just half-assed music and stuff to actually working with someone else who is equally as talented and different, like has different inspirations and different ways of making music, being able to sort of like work with them definitely sort of recharged my own excitement about making music and definitely delving into a bit of a style that I hadn't really tackled before. So I guess it's sort of it just comes down to it is sort of just dancey sort of EDM sort of techno underground stuff, but yeah, a lot of work's gone into what we've done, and we've obviously loved doing it, and so we're hoping to sort of now that this sort of COVID chapter is hopefully moving along, we'll be able to bang some more stuff out and start really sort of putting some feet underneath this project. So, but up till now, it's sort of still a bit of a DIY work in development. But yeah, so judging by what we've been doing so far, it looks promising. So
cool.
Yeah.
Oh, good stuff.
And then I guess in terms of just other stuff, I've been we're like producing music for probably 5 or 6 years, just under Riley Michael, nothing, no special alias or moniker or anything like that. I kind of got my start late high school. I was listening to it sounds so dumb, but like my entry to this whole thing was like through Melbourne Bounce, and like when that was you got your Will Sparks and your Joel Fletchers and all the big boys making the doofy kick bass. So I started getting into like clubbing straight away and DJing and yada yada yada. So I was straight on the YouTube rip acapellas, kick bass, 128 BPM. Let's go.
Beautiful.
So that was my start. So I made a couple of tracks doing it like that, and really enjoyed it, but very quickly worked out that I was bored shitless. So started getting around. Making stuff that was more geared towards like the music that I enjoyed listening to that wasn't necessarily what everyone else was listening to. So a lot of a lot of sort of deeper, darker, heavy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I've always had a massive sort of, heavy rock and metal influence. So I guess sort of more aggressive sounds and more, deeper, heavier, darker stuff was definitely a massive influence. Like, just to name a few, like people like, Drezzo and shit like that. Like some of these like really hard underground EDM producers have always been like a massive influence to me. And then from there, I kind of, as I sort of got my chops up, sort of similar to John, I sort of dabbled in sort of hip hop and trappy stuff. Trap's always been a bit of a favorite genre of mine, sort of under the radar. And then I had, a bit of a dubstep phase for like 3.5 minutes. And then that's kind of led us to where I am today. And I've kind of haven't really come into where I am now as a musician as such. I was a drummer for a number of years, so I guess having a very percussive and rhythmically minded way of making music's definitely helped. But was never a pianist, was never a guitarist, was never anything like that. So I sort of put all of my creative energy into more sound design and soundscapes and atmospheric elements rather than harmony and melody and counter melody and motifs and stuff like that, which I have sort of picked up over the years. But that was definitely and still is sort of a bit of a way more on what it sounds like rather than what's being played itself.
Yeah,
if that makes sense. So that's sort of where I'm at.
Cool. So I feel like I'm a bit outnumbered here, having 3 drummers surrounding me.
Yes.
And being the only non-drummer. I mean, I'd say I'm the only guitarist, but that's just straight not true. Because Compa, you play a bit of guitar as well, don't you?
Oh, I can. Like I used to play tabs. Songs, and I had a bass for a while that don't really play anymore, but I can play chords and like riffs, but
you're already miles ahead of me.
And we know Tiny Vessels plays a bit of guitar. We've talked about it before, Trav, but just to kind of give everyone in the audience who doesn't know what you do, give a rundown of your musical background and what you're up to and all that kind of stuff as well.
Oh, me?
Yep. By the way, just before we go, we've got one Riley with a surprised face and a love heart face.
Hey.
And one can confirm Riley sucks at being a musician.
That is 100% Al.
Yes.
Oh, definitely.
Yes.
Fuck off, Al.
And then we've got Old School Devices says, "Shut up, idiots." And BB says, "Clearly you need to learn drums, Lucky." And I agree, but I don't have the space.
I love how you're the one that supposedly needs to learn drums, and yet you're the one that's banging out beats 4,000 times faster than any of us. So
but I'm not drumming.
Bit of irony there.
But I'm only drumming them with my fingers, not with my.
That's what it starts with the fingers and it works its way up the arm, and then eventually you can't stop hitting tables and chairs, and then anyway,
it all goes downhill from there. All right, so Tiny Vessels, can you give us a rundown of what your musical background is?
Yeah, I don't think we've actually spoken about this before, which is pretty cool.
No, I don't think we have.
I just want to start off by saying if we do get abused, it's totally my fault, because when I shared the links and that, I was like, yeah, come abuse us in the comments. So if we get abused in the comments, it's
actually getting abused. Yeah, okay, thanks, bro.
You're welcome. All right.
You're
welcome. So I started pretty much with a band called Snack Attack, which was a cover band. I played drums in that band for about 10 years. We played at, I feel like, every venue in Melbourne. That's kind of where I lifted off. After maybe 6 or 7 years into that, that's when I made a pop punk band called The Spin Set with one of my good friends, Stu, Bassie, and Craig. So that was like a big influence on my musical taste, because I was very much a pop punk kid in high school. So yeah, I played guitar and lead vocals in The Spin Set, was drumming in Snack Attack, and then that all kind of finished up around a similar time. And then I created my own side project, which was Tiny Vessels. But then me and Ed started jamming, and then that became Tiny Mountain. So Tiny Vessels is kind of like, I guess it's more of a slower paced kind of project. I've got 3 songs out on Spotify. Tiny Mountain's a bit more fresh. We've only got 2 singles out, but we just did a live stream about just over a week ago on our Facebook where we played all 7 of our current tracks live. So that was sick.
Can confirm that was sick.
AV'd out in that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's pretty much me summarized in a nutshell. I guess, yeah, I'm kind of a multi-instrumentalist, if you will. Bit of drums, guitar, bass, and vocals. I dabble in the synth and keys realm. But yeah, that's me.
Nice.
Let's talk about you, mate. Let's talk about the source.
The source.
The Lucky Beresford.
So,
Tell us your musical history, mate.
like most people, I started bands in high school when I was like 15. I was frontman / guitarist for a metal band throughout high school, and then me and Compa played together.
Yeah, we did.
In a band a couple of times. Him on drums. This is, man, you would have been so young. You would have been like 20 or something back then.
I was like 18.
Like 18.
Yeah, I was real young.
Hell yeah. So
Reds, man.
and yeah, so I ended up going from that band through a whole bunch of stuff in uni. Ended up in a rock band called Spark Iris for a while, which then turned into Lazarus Mode, and was with those guys for quite a few years. Dropped an album that was pretty good, did a lot of production on there. All the while doing little bits of electronic stuff here and there, but really not getting into it that much. More staying on the studio production side. I was running a studio, recording bands and singers and shit like that. And then I started a rap battle with some friends in like 2017, I think it was, where we would write these just diss tracks to each other, and they started off really shit, like terrible, like the worst thing you've ever heard, and then we got better and better and better, and then I kind of started taking it a little bit more seriously than the other guys, and like made it like, you know, looked at the beats a little bit further and kind of made a whole solo album, got away from the actual diss stuff, which went really nowhere. But then I started working on the beats, moved to Canada, met up with a whole bunch of rappers and beat makers over there, and they kind of inspired me while I was over there. And then when I came back to Australia, I thought this is actually what I want to do. So I started making beats full time in not full time, like I've been working, but like that's the only musical outlet I've had for the last year, is just making beats. I'll like throw down a verse here or there, rapping, but not very good, so I try and focus on the actual beat side of things. Yeah, and that's me. I've just been trying to grow the beat making thing up since then, and now that we're in the coronavirus era, I'm trying my hardest to turn it into a full career.
Hell yeah. Yeah, so for everyone who doesn't know who Lockie is and has come from the outside, yeah, he's a beat maker. He's absolutely fanging out the tunes. He's dropping about 3 or 4 beats per day.
Writing, yeah.
Yeah. That's just insane.
Yeah.
It's just insane. I don't know anyone who's releasing that much music.
No.
I did 5 today.
That's it. That's
Yeah, all right.
Interested in seeing, because he does a whole bunch of production stuff as well, like tutorials and songwriting tips and all that kind of thing on his YouTube channel too. So if you're interested in that,
well, you're on the YouTube channel if you're here.
Yes,
so
but they're not subscribed.
No,
I feel.
Oh yeah. Do you guys have channels and stuff that you want? Like, I'm gonna plug me first, obviously. If you're on this, subscribe to me, please. I need subs. We've got the Tiny Vessels page as well. It's hard you can't really plug YouTube pages. You just gotta kind of search them, don't you? Because they don't give you good URLs until you've got enough views.
But I know the blokes, I think you guys have got SoundCloud accounts, right? That you release your tunes on.
Yeah.
So what are you guys on SoundCloud? Just if anyone wants to find your music and have a geezer?
Yeah, just Riley Michael, just same as my name spelt, just Riley Michael on SoundCloud.
Yeah, sweet.
Cool.
Mine's John Compa, so
Easy.
JOHNCOMPA. But like
Yeah,
I've
could not
released,
get more straightforward.
yeah, I haven't released anything on there for a while. You can check out the Colbys. We're on all platforms. My band, the Colbys. That's you can check that out.
Oh yeah, I can attest that they are deliciously good.
Yeah,
Tiny Mountain has supported them multiple times.
yeah, you have.
Always a great time.
I ended up in
Daniel-
one of your calendar photo shoots of like
Yeah, you
the
did.
white right up the front.
Man,
But yeah,
So
I don't know what you are, but that's all right.
yeah, we're on all platforms if you want to check us out.
Hell yeah.
So I'll put a link to all of your guys' stuff in the description. I can't do it now, but actually I probably can do it now, but I'm not going to. I'll do it later.
It will happen.
We'll chuck it in after the fact.
Yeah, and so if anyone is looking to check out anyone's things, there'll be a list of all of the links in the description of this video, but you're going to have to come back to it and grab it because we didn't think about that just yet. But
All right.
that's cool.
All good.
Should we get into the more techie kind of side of stuff?
Yeah, this is the part where people start switching the video off because kind of had to
we
milk
can
it.
probably talk about more about workflow first, if you guys.
Yeah, 100%.
I just want to say a couple of things in the comments just because I haven't said anything in a while. Brad says, rumor has it the more angry Compa gets, the brighter the red lights glow. You know you're in trouble if things start looking like Tron.
Oh, you're Brad.
You're not wrong. Not wrong.
And Flecked Sound says, too many drummers. That's Rick for you playing at home. And Not Daniel says, see you lads, in response to our talking about techie shit. Oh, and then he retracted the message, so he's probably staying.
Fake
Call
news.
it out.
Fake
Call it out.
news,
In fact,
Daniel.
you wouldn't say that.
Not Daniel.
Yeah. Let's talk workflow. I feel like we're all going to have completely different workflows, and we're also going to have different workflows depending on what project we're in. I'm sure, Compa, you don't treat your band stuff the same way that you treat your electronic music.
No way.
And I'm sure, Trav, you've got Tiny Vessels and Tiny Mountain are completely different writing processes as well.
Absolutely.
So, I'm trying to think of where to start here with this. I'm going to go back to Compa because I started with you first and we worked our way around. Let's talk about. I'll start with your EDM. I'm interested to hear like how you start an EDM track, or like whatever you're on right now. I forgive me, I don't know genres of electronic music.
That's all good.
Which is really bad. I think it's all one thing.
I just want dance music. There's literally no point.
Yeah.
Subdividing that genre. But yeah, like I guess I usually start out like these days. Actually, I got the tip from you, Lockie. I saw one of your live stream like production videos. I never really did it before, but like basically setting yourself like a preset session
template
where I'd never really worked with that sort of thing before. I just usually be a blank canvas and then I just bang in anything I want. But now I've got all my drums on a drum bus, bass, synths on a different bus, keys, and everything's already got a bit of EQ going through it, like compressor, like all my keys and synths chains will have all my favorite synths. Like I'll mainly use like Serum or Spire or any other synth. So everything will already be laid out and I can just pick and choose what I actually want to put into the track.
Yeah.
So these days, that's kind of a new thing that I've done. Basically, I always, being a drummer, and I'm pretty sure the other guys can agree, I always start with drums.
Yeah.
Some sort of drums, whether it just be a 4 to the floor kick beat, kick and clap and whatever, like it's something along those lines, and then I can just go back and change it later.
Yeah.
And then I'll start with a chord, and I'll just start with a chord progression. I'll try and find a cool sound to use. I've always got chord progressions happening all the time. So I'll start with a chord progression, then I just start playing riffs on my keyboard, getting cool little melodies and anything like that. That's literally how I approach it.
So
I approach, if I was doing, just say, a techno track, it'd be the same as me doing like a hip hop track. It's always the same. I always start with drums. I don't know. I just get the vibe of the song a lot sooner when I've got a chord progression and drums, and I can just build on from that. And I'll usually use I use Ableton as my DAW. Should have mentioned that earlier. And I mainly, when I build my sessions, I usually will record loops in the mixing window. So I'll record 8-bar, 16-bar loops, whatever, and I'll sometimes use most of the time use my Novation Launchpad interface, and you can actually record and re-loop recordings on that, and I can just build tracks really easily, and I'll just record directly into Ableton.
That's something.
That's my thing. That's why I love Ableton so much.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting because Trav and I are on Logic. What do you do, Riley? What's your door?
I'm a bit of a weasel. I jump between a few, but mainly Ableton is where I sort of came from. But over the last sort of 2 years, I've actually gravitated towards Studio One by PreSonus.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, but Ableton I'm just as comfortable with.
Yeah, well, the Trav and I, we're on Logic, so we're the Logic crew. You guys are the Ableton crew. Now, Logic we've just got an update now that mimics your loop function.
Oh, really?
Which
here we go.
Which is really interesting because I've tried to use it, having just gotten it, and I can't like do it yet. Like it feels really foreign to me right now. But
it takes a while, man. It does. Like it took me. Like, I never used to do it either, but when you got it and you use it, you can definitely see the benefits. It's easy to get ideas down real quick.
It looks like if you were good at it, you'd be able to just like record, then arrange live, which is like, that sounds awesome to me.
You can. I sometimes even arrange within my loop, like mixing window.
Oh wow! Yeah.
Right. What I'll do is I'll have a bunch of loops, like just say every instrument, just kick, bass, keys, synth, even effects. I'll have everything along the top, and then I want to arrange it like the next. So Ableton deals like, it works in like rows, right? Each row you can click the far right play button and it will play everything within that row, right?
Yeah.
So like I said, I'll record all my ideas at the top row, and then what I'll do is I'll just say the next row down I'll have like an intro where it'll just be chords and I don't know, some little percussion or something. The next row will be the verse, and I can actually build a song.
That's really cool.
Using the rows. That's like what I like to do. And then that way, if I want to, I can then record all those loops, all those rows into the other window of Ableton, and it just records everything through. That's a cool way to get ideas down real quick. Like just say, if you want to do a verse, chorus, build up, drop, anything, you can actually do it.
Yeah.
Using the row. That's a cool little thing I found.
Yeah, that's cool.
And again, using my Novation Launchpad, I can do that just by pressing the buttons on the actual interface.
That's sick.
So, it's a cool way to do it.
Do you use that same function, Riley?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, funnily enough, not really. When I don't really have the like option of doing that in Studio One, because Studio One isn't so much a live used DAW, so it's very much more a mixer and an arranger. But when I do use Ableton, I funnily enough never really got around the whole like the loops page. I understood what it was, and I understood its uses for what it was essentially. But yeah, I think I was just very much more. I had to see everything sort of linearly on an arrangement view. I had to see from left to right. This is my intro. That's leading into my build up. That's now leading into a drop. that's going out, that's going back. I can see that. It's sort of a landscape for me. Looking at a loop screen sort of felt like I was limited because I couldn't actually see the nitty gritty. Like I might have a transition effect or some kind of sound that's stitching together one part of the song to another, and you can see that on an arrangement window, whereas I felt that on a loop screen it's very, this is the start, this is the next loop, this is the start, and it felt a little less cohesive for me in terms of writing, which is, there's pros and cons to it. Like obviously, like, John's worked out a way that actually sounds super efficient, and he's made it work for him, which I guess just speaks to the flexibility of the software and software like that, but yeah, no, I think I'm a little bit more old school in terms of I'll literally just with whatever part of the song I'm working on, I'll literally just drop it in the arranger, and I'll just I'll sort of draw it out, I'll drag it out, I'll loop stuff, and the more I can sort of see it going from left to right, that's how I sort of see the song coming together.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Interesting. So Compa, in terms of how you write with your band in comparison, do you, like being the drummer, do you write a lot of the like melody and all that kind of stuff, or are you kind of brought in just for the backbeat in the end?
Basically for the backbeat, like a lot of our songs will get written by one of the two guitarists bringing in a riff or a chord progression, and it's crazy because no one like Riley and Travel understand too, but like it's not until you add drums to a riff or a chord progression that's when the source comes into play. Like, cause the guys have brought in ideas before, like really cool riffs, and then it's not like heavy or doesn't have that that good, like that vibe to it until drums come in. So like I'm not just let's just add a 4 to the floor drum beat for this like I won't go over complicated obviously, but it's all in that genre. Like drums is actually really important. But like I'm not a good melody guy when it comes to guitar. Like I'm not going to say do this or harmonize with this, but I'll like composition wise, like when to pause for a section to make the next section hit harder. Like I kind of input a lot of that stuff with those guys. I think it just comes with, I don't know, with being a drummer, like sometimes less is more, and silence is more effective than an overcomplicated drum beat. So I don't know. That's why I love jamming with those guys, because we've all got a different, we've all got our own kind of thing we add to the group.
Yeah. So do you guys in terms of like the writing process, does someone come to you with does like one of the guitarists come with like a complete song kind of like demoed and ready to go, or do they normally come in with an idea or a chord progression and then you flesh it out together as a full band?
It's happened both ways. Like Jack, our singer, will come in. He'll come in. He's the vocalist and one of the guitarists, so he'll come in with a full song.
Because he's quite a good electronic producer as well, isn't he?
Yeah, well, his solo stuff he's done is really electronic. He kind of like his song that he released a while just recently actually sounds a lot like The Weeknd.
Oh wow! Like
that kind of vibe. It sounds really good. And then you A/B it with what he does in the Colbys, like still saying like he's got such a good R&B type voice, and that over the top of a really heavy riff or bluesy riff just fits so well. So in both avenues he does well.
Yeah.
But like I said, like he'll come in with a full song. Like one of our singles, Telephone, that was literally Jack coming in, hey, I made this song. It was like I think it was a breakup song, that one. He just came in with this chord progression, and then we all just added our own little flavor. And that was pretty much it. So it's happened both ways. And then other ideas, someone we'll just have a jam, and then someone will spark a really cool riff, and then we'll jam on it for a while, and then just keep working at it until it's a full song.
Cool. So I was just reading the comments here. Brad says Jack. Of course, in reference to the Tiny Mountain and
Yeah.
and Colby's ad that you guys did when you were playing together, which was
Yeah.
comedy genius. If
I forgot about that.
Yeah, so my band Tiny Mountain, we do skits to promote shows and merch and all that kind of stuff. It's the fun way of doing things for us. So we did one with the Colbys, and
That was fun.
yeah, if you haven't seen it,
So
head over to the Tiny Mountain Facebook and check it out.
Trav, I've still
It's a
got
good
your
laugh.
name on my phone saved as Tiny Mountain because
Oh
of that.
yeah, because we changed
we-
it for
we
the
called- we
filming of that
called
skit,
you.
right?
So you called up,
That's so
and
funny.
whenever Trav calls, it comes up as Tiny Mountain.
What do you end up saying? You're like, oh, more like tiny dickhead or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Oh, we had so much fun shooting that, man. That was fun.
Oh, that was the best.
All right,
I love
Riley.
that.
Yes, sir.
So John comes in with the drums first, layers some chords, and then throws the sauce on top of that with melodies and whatnot. How do you start your process? If you have one way of doing it.
Yeah, I guess, I kind of like... I guess the easy answer is I don't, but I definitely have my go-to, like, sort of idea starter concepts, if that makes sense. So, depending on what I feel like I'm making, like, if I'm sitting down making, like, sort of a cookie-cutter, dancey EDM track or whatever, I might do something very similar. I might, sort of draw out a bit of a plan with percussion as to where the rise and the fall is, where the dynamics change and blah, blah, blah. And then sort of start layering over more melodic elements. But a lot of the time I sort of find myself actually, like, which this sort of throws back to what I was saying, when I'm more sort of find that sound design inspires me more than actual musicality. So I'll just muck around with it. I'll open a synth up, or I'll get an audio sample and I'll just destroy it. I'll stretch it, I'll pitch it, I'll reverse it, I'll EQ it, and I'll try and sort of get inspiration out of sound. And most of the time, the sound or the synth that I've created or the patch that I've altered or whatever will usually lead me into some kind of, almost like a thematic element for the song. So, if I've made sort of like, a war horny, roaring, bass, or if I've made like a really, ambient, fluffy, like lead or whatever, that'll usually set the tone, and I'll kind of just bounce off that. A lot of the time, I'm taking samples. I'll take vocal samples, I'll take Foley recordings, and I'll just affect the crap out of it, and then that'll sort of lead me with a sound, and from that I'll sort of be inspired, if that makes sense. And usually a lot of the stuff that I do, and a lot of it is sort of, just all kept to myself, not released or anything, but a lot of the projects that I find myself working on are quite minimal musically. They're not super complex in terms of the the composition. They're not super complex in terms of any motifs or melodies or whatever. Very, very basic, but I try and sort of, convey whatever message I'm trying to convey with the music through the sounds and through the, the automation and through the actual like movement of the track. I know I'm getting very like philosophical.
No, it's good.
But I sort of know where my limits are in terms of being a musician. I know that like I tend to be drawn towards more of what something sounds like. So that then inspires me to make music based on that. So I might come up with a strange wubby-dubby warpy bass sound, which is playing two different notes, but the drums and the effects and the swells and all that kind of stuff around that is what kind of drives the whole, that might be the drop, and it's some crazy weird bass with drums around it that is just strange, and you'd think, how the hell did you end up there? But it's because I'm starting with the sounds rather than the music itself. So that's sort of the where I find myself when I'm writing music.
That's why me and Riley work well together.
Yeah, because you're doing the
We've both got different goals. Like, I remember we had a chat one night, like we were both literally just saying what we told you guys. Like, we were both in like a producing lull, but like, Riley was more into like, the sound design, but couldn't get inspired by making chords or melodies. And my thing was like, I was just getting stumped by making shit not sound like the way I wanted it to. And then when me and Riley have caught up a couple times now to like, it gel. That's why it gels really well, because we both have different like outsets in a
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
And
So
Sure.
with the
different
stuff that we've
starting
made,
points.
with the stuff that we've made, like I'll lay down a chord progression or a melody, and then Riley will fuck around with the synths and getting shit to sound really cool, and we'll both have our input and stuff, and then it'll all like sound the way we want it to.
Yeah, that's
The
really
melody,
cool.
the melody will inspire Riley to make a cool sound, and then the cool sounds will inspire me to make a cool melody, sort of thing. Like that's why we work. Like we've worked well together. So that's why we're keen to get things actually happening.
Hell yeah,
for sure. For
Yeah.
sure.
That's sick.
Yeah.
Let's talk to Tiny Vessels up there. You've been quiet for a little bit. Just taking it all in.
That's it. I'm taking it all in.
So we're like, let's start with the Tiny Vessels act as opposed to the Tiny Mountain one.
Yep.
Where, like, do you have a process when it comes to starting a track? Do you have templates? How do you... Oh, wait, sorry, just before I do that, Riley, do you work off a template? Or...
I do, yes.
Yeah,
yes,
okay,
I do.
cool.
Yeah.
So all of us right now are working off templates, which is,
For sure.
I guess, kind of telling, because I know there's still a lot of people who don't and who refuse to, so...
Do it.
Yeah.
After about 10 minutes or so, it's just a mess, but, at least you sort of started with the right intention, but after, very quickly it gets destroyed, but it's good to start off with.
Yeah. So
Definitely.
Tiny Vessels...
The session evolves, for sure.
Yeah. So what's your writing process for Tiny Vessels?
Tiny Vessels. I usually start off with just the guitar and vocals. I will set up a guitar tone that I'm just digging, whether that's on my acoustic or my electric, and I'll just set up a vocal mic with some nice verb or whatever on it, and I'll just start playing. So usually every track that Tiny Vessels that releases, it's I always start with the core of the song first. Whereas I've had other projects where it works backwards to that. But I found that like the songs come out better as a whole, and they're more I don't know, I feel like the meaning of the song, it's just like, it seems like when you just start with just vocals and chords, you have to have a good song first before you start layering it.
Yeah.
And I used to
it should sound good at the foundation before you actually start. Yeah.
Layering is easy for me. It's never an issue. Like coming up with the musical parts, filling the sound out or whatever, coming up with bits. But actually having the foundation of a good song first is the hardest part. And I feel like if you're working backwards, where you write the music and then you put the vocals down, which is I've done before, and it's definitely possible. I just feel like I get a better result that way. So that's what I do for Tiny Vessels. I just feel like the songs come out more genuine.
Yeah.
I guess that's interesting for myself.
That's more of a traditional singer-songwriter style.
It is.
Where someone comes up with that and then they take it to a band and they put all the extra instruments in, but you're the band. And then they take it to a producer and they put all the fun stuff on, but you're the producer as well. So you're taking the parts of the entire process, keeping the same idea chronologically, but doing it all yourself, which is really cool.
Yes. Yeah. So I write everything myself. I mix and master everything myself. So from when the song gets written to when the song's released, it's gone all through me and nobody else, which is pretty cool. But with Tiny Mountain, it's actually a different workflow altogether. We actually write songs when we're jamming live. So,
sorry, I'm reading the comments, and it, Daniel's just said top row, hat row, and that just
what was it?
Cheers for pointing that out, not Daniel.
So if you're looking at this on my screen or on the internet, you guys both have hats, and me and Riley don't have hats, and we're at the bottom. Yeah.
Very astute observation, not Daniel.
Astute observation.
Good one.
Also, left row is lead row, where the rooms are lit up with LED lights. And
true. Me and Riley are leadless.
Leadless.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad
you can't see my LEDs though.
So don't pay attention to any of the content we're talking about, guys. Just analyze the background of the.
I know the mind wanders. It's like in Jim Jeffries when it's like the people get bored in a stand-up special and they start looking up at the chandelier.
Yeah, yeah, that's
How
right.
did they get that up there? You know?
Yeah.
I mean, we're all AV techs. We've definitely been guilty at gigs. I'm sure the rest of you have at
Oh,
like
yeah.
getting bored and just like checking out all the different gear that is currently being used. Like what speakers they're running, what lights they got going on, and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, hell yeah.
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 So keep going. Sorry, I got
Yeah,
distracted.
Tiny Mountain.
Yeah.
So me and Ed, we actually jam everything live first.
Yeah.
So our songwriting is completely different. We jam everything completely live, and we'll track drums and guitar, and we'll kind of feed off of each other and get the backbone of the beat first before we actually start writing vocals.
That's cool.
So we get the whole track. So it's the complete opposite to Tiny Vessels, really. Some tracks we've brought in, finished, which I'll go through in a sec, but the majority, it's all jam, because we're such a funky based kind of band. We just love having the feel first, and then we'll kind of build on it. So, Treading on Ice and Nothing More to Say, which are our two first singles, they were both jammed out first, all musically, before we even started vocals. But like some of these other tracks, I know Precious Moments, which is more of a dancey kind of number. Ed completely wrote that one by himself, and I ended up just kind of editing, like put my flavor on the drums. So I kind of wrote the drums for that one, but like the song as a whole he completely wrote that. And then like there's another song, Golden, which is just basically an acoustic track, which I wrote exactly the way I would write a Tony Vessels track. It was just guitar and vocals, and then I brought it into Ed, and he just brought in some really light ambient kind of guitar, and it just worked perfect. So yeah, just stuff like that. So every kind of song has its own character, and it's written in a different way. But you just gotta kind of, I don't know, let it evolve. And let it be born the way it's supposed to, you know. But like, I guess like
I wish I had that much confidence in what I was writing, that the way I'm imagining it is the way it's going to sound. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird especially when I'm writing Tiny Vessels tracks, I can hear everything in my head. Like as I'm playing it, just guitar and vocals, I already know what I'm going to do with the drums and bass and all the extra guitars and shit. It all just comes to me straight away.
I wish I could sing, man. I wish I could sing. Like songs would be able to come out so much more easier.
Get some auto tune.
Like, oh,
this is why you collaborate and network, is because
exactly.
no one's perfect at everything. So you manage to find out and link up with people that have different skill sets, different to your own, and that goes from there, which is sort of the
absolutely
core of this sort of hobby / industry.
Yeah,
absolutely. So let's like take a turn to NoisySauce, because we're all like, we know that you do a live stream almost every day with your beats and stuff. It'd be cool to know even how you did your workflow in your old band, Lazarus Mode, to when like your workflow today. Just I know they're completely different projects, but it'd be cool to know the difference.
Yeah, I feel like my workflow has, I mean, with everything evolved over time. With my old band, I would say it was much more similar to the traditional way. My singer would do the majority of the writing. He'd usually come up with some riffs and some, because he was a guitarist as well, and like a idea of where the vocals were going, and he'd bring it to the band, and we'd kind of workshop the whole thing, and essentially act as a production team for him. So that was probably the main way that we do that kind of stuff. Not very not anything really exciting. It was all done in the rehearsal room. Very little of it was done in a studio sense, which is completely different to what I'm doing now. I also used to write acoustic tracks as well. They were trash, so I don't want to talk about that too much, but I did go with much more of a similar way that you did it, Trav, with just writing an acoustic track with vocals and then building everything else around that. And if I was to do singer-songwriter kind of music again, that is probably how I would do that. as well, because I feel like for a song like a rock song or a pop song, that having a chord progression with a vocal line, if you can just do it on an acoustic guitar, and it's a great song, then it'll be a great song when you get it fully produced.
Yeah, definitely.
So that would be my way of doing that if I was to do that. But probably more exciting is the workflow that I've got going on now, which has kind of evolved as I've been beat writing, and kind of building it up and getting faster and faster and faster at it, to the point where I can live stream confidently the writing of a beat from start to finish, and know that every day that I do it, I'm gonna finish that beat at the end of the process, which did take a while to get to, but is something that is like kind of grown over time. So I obviously run a template. I think I would be dead without my template, because trying to write a song in like an hour and a half. I mean, like some of them take as little as 50 minutes. I think my quickest one has been like 25 minutes, start to finish, which is ridiculous. But I use a lot of my my template in that, and a lot of my tracks use the same sounds but then get manipulated. So my template is really important to me, if not for anything else, just the layout. Brad says the four of you together look like an early 2000s R&B boy band, just so you know.
Cheers, Brad.
That's so good.
I don't know if that's a compliment or abuse.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm going to take it as a compliment.
Yeah, it is what we think it is.
Jim's not being ramen noodle hair JT.
I think I'm the closest to that with my semi-frosted tips up in here. So my workflow, it does change up a little bit, but I usually start with a sound or a chord progression. A melody or a chord progression is the majority of the start. Sometimes I start with drums, but yeah, usually chords and a cool sound at the start. I'm like you, Riley, very inspired by the sounds that I use, and I'm usually looking for a tone, and then I build the chords or the melody around that tone. Yeah,
of course. Yeah, definitely. I think straight off the bat, you can tell if you know, your ears will prick up. Like, you'll just know your ears will prick up when you hear something cool.
Yeah.
And as soon as you hear that, you know, whether it's sort of, you know, if it's a dainty little reverby bell, then, you know, you've got like a very sort of, you know, an arpeggiated, you know, pretty little melody that you can make out of that. Or if it's it's an absolutely face melting bass or something, then, you know, that'll be a much more aggressive sort of, you know, hard hitting track based around that sound. So it's yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so that's where I'll start, and then usually go to drums from there. And I've got this way of doing my session, which I stole from a Deadmau5 tutorial. I don't know if you guys have seen that. Have you seen the master classes? Those.
Some of those masterclass videos. Yeah.
Deadmau5 does a masterclass where he shows his writing process, and he showed that he started off by creating all of the sounds that he was going to use in the track in one stack, and that would be like the most exciting part of his track. It would be that stack of all the instruments together, and then he would go and arrange it, and it would just be the deleting of various parts from as the song progressed. So So he'd have like the all in part, and then the rest of the track would just be that minus certain instruments or certain sounds. Which is like the majority of my writing and arranging follows that kind of thing. Like, I do change up in like parts and progressions and, you know, all that kind of stuff. Some, like, a lot of the time, but the majority of it does follow that, and I find that's a really quick way of making a track, especially when you're making hip hop, where the instruments really play a second role to the vocal. Like nothing is really as important as the rapper ever in hip hop, except for that Roddy Ricch track with the but but every like you don't really need to have big you don't have to have big changes in hip hop like you do, I feel like, in pop music or EDM or rock or folk. So I can get away with that a lot easier. Although, having said that, Deadmau5 did use that process, and he's arguably the biggest, one of the biggest EDM producers around.
Yeah, for sure. Sure. I think that whole concept of sort of progression, whether you're progressing upwards or progressing downwards, is a very sort of like foolproof way of actually finishing something. And I think the concept of finishing something is sort of a bit of a gray area for some people. Like I know, I'm definitely very guilty of this, but like I've got 50 projects on my computer that are all started, and maybe one of them is anywhere near finished. You know what I mean? And I think sometimes having those like little tools and tips and tricks can actually help you sort of get over the edge of like getting over the line of, okay, this is actually done. And sometimes that sort of that progression technique, which I've definitely used in the past before, is very handy, because you sort of get caught up in the whole, well, what now? Well, what next? Do I need to introduce something else now? I need to introduce something else and keep it interesting. And what ends up happening is it starts just, taking away from the dynamic of the song. Your big bits start sounding smaller, and your smaller bits just sound just as big as your big bits. So the concept of taking away actually will start carving out it'll almost carve out like the vibe of the song, because you'll be taking stuff away, which then gives the listener that want to hear it again. And so when you do give it to them again, then it's like the big wow moment.
Yeah.
But,
true.
Absolutely. There's a track by Peking Duck, Fake Magic. That's a classic example of that songwriting technique, because the drop only happens maybe I think 2 times in the whole track, where the chorus is actually
and I think
big.
the second drop is the outro or something.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
It plays it on the way out.
But like the second chorus is just like pretty empty. It's just got like just guitar and vocals and a few other bits and pieces, but there's no drums. And I noticed like throughout the majority of that track, there's actually not much of a beat happening. But you only remember the funky part of it as well.
Yeah,
it's really, really good songwriting. That just reminded me of that when you were saying that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of finishing tracks, that's a contentious topic, I feel like.
Oh yeah.
Especially with people starting out. Now I know I've got my opinions on all this, but like who's had problems like getting ideas out and finishing your ideas, and like do you have techniques to, like you just talked about yours, Riley, of kind of using that same kind of pulling stuff out technique. Do you have any other ways of doing things, like deadlines, or like what can you use to inspire you to finish a track?
Me?
Yeah, I'll start with you. You started this.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm probably the worst person to talk to here. I think Trav and John are a little bit probably better at this than me, because I have such an inconsistent writing and producing process. I kind of just go with whatever I'm doing at the time. But I think I know when a song's done when I've sort of had a chance to sort of say everything that I wanted to with that music.
Yeah.
I think if I want to convey a sort of a slower, more say like a slower, sadder, more depressive song, and there's a couple of almost how do I say it? Like I know that there's a few points in the song that I want to do. I want to do this, and this. I want there to be a a moment here where this happens. I want there to be a moment here where it builds up and then drops again. And I think whether it's a 2.5 minute song or whether it's an 8 minute song, if I've had the chance to sort of get those ideas out and I'm happy with them, then I know it's done. I think much like still to this day, but a lot earlier on as well when I was producing, I was kind of like mentally limiting myself to like make sure that there was a long enough outro for a DJ to mix it with another song and stuff. So I was like, okay, I've done the second drop now. Now it's a 45-second outro so that they can mix it with another track. So sometimes it was a bit of that, but I think as I've sort of broken away from that, like, club DJ sort of barrier, and actually started making music that's not necessarily just meant to be played as bangers in clubs. I think, yeah, I don't know. It's sort of a cop-out answer, but I think it's just when I've had a chance to do everything I wanted to do with that song, if that makes sense.
No, that makes sense. Definitely.
Yeah. So that, yeah. But in saying that, I've probably done it 5 times, and I have 400 unfinished songs that I haven't actually followed through with that. But yeah, that's usually the way. That's usually the way I'll know.
Yeah, nice. Well, let's maybe throw to John.
Yeah.
I haven't heard his beautiful voice in a while, so let's throw to you, man. And
for me, because I mean, you can never really finish a song. There's no like, oh yeah, okay, this song's now finished. It's you like what Riley said. You got to set like you said, you got to set yourself goals, like what you want to achieve, like whether it be towards like a reference track, like you want to try and get the same vibe as a particular song. But I think my thing is when you're producing, and then I don't know, there's always that moment where I'll listen to it back, and I'll go like, oh, actually, I've got something fucking good here. Like, I don't know if it's the way it sounds at the time or whatever. That's when I'll stop and work on something else in the song, whether it be, I don't know, mixing or EQing, like just leave it alone for a bit and then maybe come back to another time. And then if I feel like anything else needs to be added, then I'll add it. But like a lot of the time you don't need to add shit. Because like you said, like Peking Duck, like it's not busy. No. Like they'll get their foundation down and then they'll fuck around with automation, or they might fuck around with like automating filters in their synths that they're using to make the song breathe more.
Yeah,
like,
their bits are very thought out.
Yeah, with electronic music, you can literally get away with 4-5 instruments, and then the rest is like your effects and like how you compose the song and how you automate the song and everything. It's like just say, for instance, when me and Riley were working on this one song, like there was this moment where we looked at each other and we were like, bro, we've got something fucking awesome here. We didn't touch it after that. We're like, now it just needs vocals.
Yeah.
And then we kind of fucked around with synths more and effects more and like white noise build-ups and
but the actual arrangement of the track was
we just left it, and then we fucked around with our envelopes with our chords and like just leave it, and then in terms of ideas, just leave it as is and then revisit it, and then it like you don't need to add much more to it, because if you get the feeling that it's a good tune yourself after you making it, there's no doubt other people will feel that as well, and that's what it's all about. So finishing a song is just getting to that point where you're like, I reckon I've got something here, and then just leaving it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If that makes sense, it's just like try working on other shit, like
definitely.
I think it's
definitely makes sense. Especially
Sorry.
like I'll always kind of keep building a track until I start to think, all right, there's nothing else I can really add to this song now that makes it a better song.
Yeah.
But like I definitely go through that period of like, you've got the backbone, you build it up, and then you're like, oh yeah, and then you start adding in bits just to fill the gaps and all this other stuff. And then like once you kind of have already done that and you listen to it back and you're like, well, the song to me is consistently not boring.
Exactly.
That's when it's ready for me. Like, I want the song to be as interesting as possible.
When it can hold your attention. Then for sure.
A big thing for me is like just listen back to other producers that I want to be like I love like Rufus the Soul. Like their sound design is incredible. Like their songwriting is incredible. When you listen to their songs though, it's not overcomplicated.
Yeah.
It's just like they'll just automate cool stuff and like kind of layer stuff that's very subtle, but it adds to the song.
Yeah.
And, there's another producer called Willaris K. Like he does that. Like he's got a kick, He'll have a bit of bass and then like a melody, but like it's just everything's breathing, like everything's just it's like waves of production. Just work
Yeah.
like work on that, and then you don't need to add too many ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lance K
There
says,
is definitely such a thing as the song getting too busy.
yeah,
Yeah, it's
Sure.
And I'm
especially
definitely
these
guilty of
days.
that, where I've added so many things. I'm like, nah, I need to take it back because it's
Yeah.
taking away from the meaning of the track once you
And
start adding too much.
And I'm sure it's the same with like Tiny Mountain stuff as well. Like I know with the Colbys, like we'll work on a song for so long, and then we'll be like, no, let's just strip it back, find like the foundation of the song, and then you'll actually go like, holy shit, like here is where the vibe of the song is in this part here, not all these layers going on. Like you don't need it
Yeah.
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 unless, but it goes either way. If you're out to make a crazy track, then that's what you might need to
I
do.
got a couple of messages on the chat that kind of relate to this. The first is "Stop Picking Your Nose, Riley" by Lance. The second one, also by Lance, is "I reckon it's never finished. You just have to let it go," which
Yeah.
I
100%.
That's a fair
100%.
comment.
That is
That's
literally it.
Yeah.
we've also
On your
got
pants.
we've
On
also
ya.
got one from Brad Delarue saying there's also the Dave Rat method. Imagine there's a camera pointed at you and afterwards you have to justify every change you've made. Are you actually improving the track by working more on it? Or are you
Yes,
just
I
fiddling?
just watched that video the other day.
Oh, did ya?
Oh, did
Yes,
you? I haven't
Dave
seen
Rat.
that. I'm definitely gonna watch that.
It does-
Legend.
Yeah.
I know Dave Rad. He's
Yeah.
amazing, but I haven't
Yeah.
seen that video.
I literally just watched that video the other day, Brad. Like,
Well,
literally just.
In
Like,
in my case, you actually have a camera pointed at you,
Exactly.
and you have
Very
to
true.
justify your process as you're going. Yeah, well, I mean, that's I think everyone's been saying fairly similar stuff. Did you have much more to add to that, Tony Vessels, aka Trav?
Yeah. I mean, songwriting's a funny thing. I find that I battle a lot with, is this idea good enough? Should I finish it? That's like the first thing that comes into my head. And I have hundreds of songs that are half songs on my computer, and it's just like, is this song? I don't know if that's the direction I want to take, or I don't know what the vibe is. Sometimes, and you've actually been the one to encourage me, Lockie. Sometimes you need to forget that and just finish the song. And
Yes.
once the song is finished, then you can decide whether you like it and want to release it or whatever. But like, I think it's all just about finishing it, and that's been like my goal. Like if I'm starting a track lately, I try. There's always this thing where you spend 6 to 8 hours on a track, and it's probably like 60%, and you're like, oh, I don't know. It's that breaking point where it's like I either commit and I'm up till midnight and I'm gonna finish this track, or I'm gonna be like, oh, I'll do it tomorrow, and then you never do.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
I'm so fucking guilty of that shit.
Oh.
But lately I've been really, really focusing on, you know what, I'm just going to push through and at least musically finish the track, and then lyrics I can potentially, because lyrics are a funny thing for me. Sometimes it doesn't all come to me on one day. Sometimes it takes, it takes a month. It could be a week. It could be a month. It could be a year. There's still songs that I bring back from I started, 2 or 3 years ago, and I'm like, I only just finished the lyrics, So it's kind of like a bit of a weird thing. Did we just lose Lockie? What's going on?
I'm here.
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
just
no,
it just my phone was running out of battery, so I had to plug it in, and then it had a little skits out when I tried to plug it in. So
All right, we good.
we back now.
But anyway, yeah, that's the kind of like my mindset, I guess, where sometimes I get a little bit overwhelmed with the idea of finishing a track because I know, like, oh, I'm gonna have to invest a certain amount of hours, but
Yeah.
and it always seems like it's worth it, because if you go that extra mile and push through,
Yeah.
and you get it out, you look back and go, fuck, man, like I'm so stoked that I actually went through with that.
Yeah.
You come up with stuff, especially like, I know 3 a.m. is like about the time where I get delusional enough where I can't start making really like interesting creative decisions, and then like I'll listen back to that kind of thing the next day and be like, I don't even know how I came up with that shit.
Yeah.
But like, I guess like my point is like, yeah, it's worth pushing through sometimes, and you end up getting a song that you're really proud of. Yeah, but I'm also guilty as shit for not finishing so many ideas at the same time. So yeah, it's kind of a mental battle, I think.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is.
There's been so many moments like what you were saying, Trav, like where you push through on an idea. I think countless times I've done that with a track of mine, and I'll be like, whatever, and then I'll literally give it love for another 2 hours. At the end of that 2 hours, I'm just like, holy shit, I've actually got something here.
Yeah.
I can't believe I was gonna ditch it a couple of hours back. Like it's weird. Like, but also I don't think every idea needs love. You know what I mean? Like not every idea is good, but if you give it enough love, it will be good. So it's kind of like trying to distinguish what deserves that love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
What needs to be scrapped. Like I've got plenty of scrapped stuff on my Ableton folders, right? But like stuff I've given extra love to, which I don't know why they got extra love. Those ones have ended up being good ideas.
Yeah.
It's weird. Like, it's that weird battle that you have to like try and. It's weird. I don't know.
I got a couple of comments here before we continue that I'm going to lose if I don't read them out. Brad says, you guys should all exchange half-finished songs that you can't quite get and take them in a different direction. Which would be fun. Cool, and then he said, maybe if the Hat Row swapped with the Bottom Boys is what he called me and Riley.
I like that you're trying to like get a real divide there, Brad. I like it.
Yeah. Or go the Andrew Huang style and all start with the same sample and see where we take it.
Oh,
that would be fun.
We
should do that.
We should.
That is a cool idea, actually.
And Dave Cooper comes in with the with a very mature line and says, "Please record your farts and vocode them for me."
Oh, Davey boy, I'll do that shit for you, mate.
Yeah, we'll get you some vocoded
I mean, I could
farts.
take it another level and literally do that shit for you.
So with this whole thing, I mean, I'm coming from a different perspective than you guys are because I feel like my music is probably the quickest and the least polished of all of yours because it's an unfinished track, really. But when it comes to finishing tracks, I never I can't remember how long it's been, but probably for the last year, I haven't started a track without finishing it before getting up. So like if I start a track, I won't do anything else until that track is not only finished but scheduled at least for release or released. For the purpose that I know that when I next sit down, if I was to sit down with that track the next day or in a week from then, I just would have no love for it at all. And that's just my workflow. I lose love for tracks, especially now, very, very quickly. I'm more excited about the new idea than I've got than the last idea that I had. My other opinion is that once you have made a track, it is no longer, this is my philosophy, it is no longer up to you to decide whether that track is good or not. You have to, you finish a track, despite whether you like it or you don't like it, you finish it. Because the idea, usually the production around an idea isn't what makes it good, it's the idea that makes it good in the first place. So you finish it, and then you put it out to the world, and it's up to everybody else to decide whether that track is good or not. And personally, that philosophy has worked quite well for me, because I've put out beats, and I finished the beat, and I fucking hate it. Like, I'm like, this is the worst thing I've made in a long time, but someone will buy that beat or, like, you know, really like that beat over the stuff that I like, and it's I feel like once it's out there, it's no longer up to me. So
Yeah.
you should put out what you don't like and let the world decide whether it's good or not. That's I think
pretty good philosophy.
Yeah,
really
I think
good
that
way
Andy
to think
Warhol
about
said that. Put out art, and while the whole world is discussing whether it's good or bad, just get to making more art.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
That's a butchered phrase right there, but it's something along those lines.
It's good because with you, Lockie, like you're obviously making music, you're making beats for other people to then put their stuff onto. Like you could hate a beat and think it's trash, whatever, but someone's looking through your beats and goes, holy shit, this is exactly the vibe that I want in this track about such and such. Like, you know what I mean? It doesn't necessarily be like they enjoy the beat, but the beat could match their lyrical content.
Yeah, and like
it could be something dark, could be something happy, but like whatever your beat is, that's why I respect like that whole beat making scene. It's like it's not a musical. Well, it is musical, but like it's more like catching the vibe of what the guy, like what the rapper wants to talk about or like rap about, or you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's the body behind the lyrics, basically.
Yeah, I completely agree. What made me realize that too was when I first heard "Humble" by Kendrick Lamar. Like, great track, but I mean, when you listen to that beat, when you first hear it, like it's a pretty trash beat. Like,
it's very simple.
It's super simple. It's underproduced. Like, there's
it's like a beat and like 3 notes on a grand piano.
It's crazy.
And it's not a very like I mean it's a great beat, but it's not like it's
impressive
not
or flex or anything.
It wouldn't like I assume it wouldn't have taken very long to make that. Actually, I think I watched the dissect of it and I'm pretty sure it was very simple. So that like most people would hear that beat amongst all these like really elaborate other beats and be like, yo, this is a trash beat, but like give it to Kendrick Lamar and he makes Humble with it,
and he made like,
and it's one of the greatest hip-hop songs in the last 20 years. Like
it can. I'm pretty like you and I have spoken about this, Lockie, like I've listened to Dissect as well, but then like in DNA with that beat switch at the end, like the producer literally wrote the beat around Kendrick's vocals in that last part, which is
insane,
crazy to me, because like Kendrick just spat bars in the studio with like an acapella, and then I can't remember the producer's name.
Mike Will made it.
Yeah, Michael made it.
Yeah,
and he just literally like made that track what it is, and it's all like odd timing and like different. The one comes in different places and stuff. Like, it's like two sides of the spectrum. Like, whereas the DNA beat is kind of simple too. Like the first half of the track, but then it just like 180s, and it's like, holy shit.
That's one of the hardest beats I've ever heard. I love that beat.
That's when that plays out like at a bar or a club. That's when everyone goes ham.
Yeah,
and no one knows actually what the song's about.
You don't need to be honest.
Oh, sorry, I lost you there, Riley. Can you repeat what you said?
It just goes off.
All right, can you hear me?
Yeah,
you're good.
I'm
sorry. Yeah, I was just saying that you don't like a lot of the time you don't need to know what the music's about, and that's why with some of these like rap tracks and whatever, it doesn't like as much as the vibe of the vocalist needs to mesh with the actual beat itself. It's the way that the cohesion between the music and the lyrics that almost creates a form of art. It's not one or the other. Do you know what I mean? And I think once that sort of starts happening, you've got something special. And that's why as you were saying, how you might not like the track that you've written because you might have written a track that in your head you thought, oh, this is dark and sad and depressed and very minor and whatever, and then that's you might think the beat's shit, and then you might think, oh yeah, someone who's written a dark, sad, depressed song will sing over that. Someone might come along and write the happiest, most uplifting track over that beat that you had no intentions of that being there, and it's and the cohesion between that and that has made something new all on its own. And that that's really cool when stuff like that can start happening, and that's really interesting.
And it was, yeah.
Yeah.
But going back to what you were saying before, Lockie, like it's not up
Got to
to
pee.
you.
I'll be back.
It, it's not. It's not
We're
up to
about
you.
now in, so it's traditionally the China Vessel's toilet break.
Toilet break is brought to you by.
So what are you saying?
Like what you were saying about like it's not up to you if it's a good track or not. Like I hear it countless times with bands and artists, like being surprised that a particular song that they made was like, you know, their biggest song, and they're like, you know, I didn't really see it coming. Like I thought this track would be popular. You know what I mean? Like I feel like that's very like I think of like Billie Eilish a lot. Like you think of Bad Guy, which is like her number one song. Me personally, that's not her best song, like on her album or whatever. But everyone loved it. I don't know why that's the number one song from that whole album. She's got way better songs, but that's just an example that comes to mind. Where it's like she probably didn't even think Bad Guy would even get that many plays, but it ended up being number one on Triple J Hottest 100. Like no, like the artist doesn't control what songs are popular, you know.
Definitely, yeah. And so that's my whole philosophy. Like if you're gonna make a career out of making and delivering music, like I plan to, you have to be willing to drop a lot of stuff. Like I know people that spend. I know a dude who spent a year and a half mixing somebody else's album, in the name of perfection, with like no other job, just like mixing 24/7, for a year and a half. And I think, fuck, like, imagine how much art you could have got done in a year and a half of not working and just spending your days making music. Like, I hate perfection. I don't believe it's true. I think perfection is just procrastination. But yeah, I think
humankind isn't perfect, so why should like everything be?
Yeah, and the best stuff isn't perfect too. I mean, me and Trav, we've talked about this quite a lot. When like we were talking about tracks that he's recorded, and he's like, oh, the vocal take has like a cracking sound in it, where your vocals kind of like, you know, missed a beat, and that like
give out,
and that's the kind of part that makes the song, and those are the bits that when you listen to someone else's track, you're like, that is fucking sick, and you hear a song that's 100% perfect start to finish, and you're like, this is boring. Just one of those.
It's so crazy because I've had demos, especially back in the spin set days, where I pushed my vocal range to the very top of where I was capable of, and I would show like my bandmates and be like, "Oh man, like this is a pretty rough demo, but have a geezer," and they would just be like, "That's the best thing I've ever heard you sing," and I'd be like, "My voice is consistently breaking in that track. What are you talking about?" And they're just like, that's what gives the song emotion. That's
raw.
What gives it character. That's what makes the song. And I'm just like, it took me a long time to understand that, because I'm like, well, it doesn't sound perfect. It sounds imperfect. And they're like, yeah, but that's what
cool.
makes it good.
Yeah.
It's crazy to me because humans like crave perfection in everything in life. But if something, you know, we've obviously got perfect music these days with things like auto-tune and quantization and everything, but people listen to that and go, oh, nah, like music back in the day, back when, was way better, because it's like we want it to be perfect, but we don't want it to be
too perfect.
Perfect. Like, you know, you can make music perfect. Everything can be quantized, like pitch corrected, everything. Like if I listen to that, I'm like, this is like whatever. Yeah. There's no
character. There's no
there's no talent in it or whatever, because everyone's just, you know, done it through computer. But then, you know, like you listen to music in the 70s and 80s where everything was, man, even the 60s, everything was kind of imperfect. Everything was recorded live.
Definitely.
That's got the emotion of music, which is literally what it's meant to be, you know.
I couldn't agree more with that, John, because I grew up like with my parents listening to like the Mamas and Papas and bands like that, where you listen back now, and their vocal and guitars are completely out of tune with their horn sections. They're like actually very, they're as far apart to perfect that you could think of. But it gives the whole song a different
wrong that it's
character.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's,
Yeah.
it's
When you-
bizarre. I
when you
remember
put a,
listening to them quite recently, and I'm just like, I
Yeah.
cannot believe how out of tune this song is, but it just makes the song in a way.
It's everything. It's the performance. That's what it
Totally.
was back then. It's the performance. Like, I've got a bit of a like record collection. I've got a few records that were recorded in analog that were meant for vinyl, playing through a speaker, and there's nothing better than listening to a record that was made for record through a sound system, because like you can hear the artist or the band in the room with you, and that I just can't believe that is better than perfection. Yeah, it's just weird to me. Like that's it's not weird because obviously that music's way better. Like, but we want perfection, but we don't want absolute perfection.
We think we want perfection, but we don't.
Yeah.
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 Well, what we perceive as perfection isn't actually perfection.
Yeah.
We've got quite a few comments here.
Yeah, we should probably read some.
Get Dad, get a sponsor for the Tiny Vessels toilet break.
Okay, we can do that.
Trav needs. This is Brad. Trav needs to start running Tiny Mountain merch ads during his toilet breaks.
Yeah, we can do that. Just like hang a t-shirt over your chair.
Yeah. Oh man, we could definitely do that. Brad also says, a mate of mine has been working on a solo album for the past 4 to 5 years, basically as long as I've known him.
See, that's
That
ridiculous.
sounds like torture.
Yeah, I mean,
It sounds like absolute torture.
actually, what made me hate perfection the amount that I do is the last band I was in, and this ain't no dissing, but when we started the band, the whole first album was written when we started and demoed.
Yeah.
So like when I joined, the first album was written and demoed. We started recording after I joined the band in 2011, and the album was released in 2017 after I left.
Wow.
So 6 years of just recording, mixing, mastering, all that stuff. And in that time, I personally recorded a EP as well as a couple of singles, and I did the whole process myself for the band. But I was like, yeah, we've got this perfect record, but if we just fucking done it, we could have had 8 records out by now. And the quality of the 8th one would be surely much higher than the quality of the one that we have now. So anyway,
You know what's absolutely crazy is, I remember listening not too long ago. I haven't listened to pop punk in a while, but that's like what I grew up on. But I listened to like Blink was like one of my biggest inspirations when I was young. Especially like Enema of the State was like one of the biggest albums that I always looked back to. And listening back to that album now, there are so many imperfections in each track, and I'm like, it just makes the songs better.
Yeah.
It gives them character. So it's just like, I don't know. I think that's
as Bob Ross would say, they're happy little accidents.
My prog metal friends here, are you guys familiar with Dream Theater's Train of Thought album?
Yes.
It's like they're probably their heaviest record. Any Dream Theater fans here? Anyone who doesn't know Dream Theater, they're a prog rock band that are super, super technical. Like one of the probably one of the most technical bands out there. And you would think that
quite theatrical also.
Yeah, like huge sections, like amazing musicianship. But Train of Thought was my favorite album. And I watched a documentary where they said that like the amount of notes in this band, like the amount of notes that end up in each song is ridiculous. Like there's so much going on, and just the ability to remember everything that's going on. Anyway, this album they said in this this show was start to finish, like songwriting to finish of recording took them 2 weeks to make.
Really?
And I was like,
I'm just
That-
looking up what's on that actual album. Oh,
It's got some pretty.
Oh.
It's got some insane tracks on it. Like
Honor Thy Father, yeah. As
Yeah.
I Am, yeah, that's a banger. Sorry.
yeah,
continue.
and when I heard that, I was like, if a band like that with music like that can write an album that insane in 2 weeks, like what the fuck are the rest of us doing?
Exactly.
Yeah. Why does
Yeah, 100%.
Guns N' Roses take 16 years to write a
Yeah.
fairly trash album? I didn't say that. Anyway, moving on.
Very good.
I'll be back, boys.
If perfection
worries.
was what defined good music, a lot of shit would be classed as trash. I think he means a lot of good shit would be classed as trash. True. There's a lot of merit to 4 to 8 track approach, like the just using a 4 or 8 track cassette recorder. Can only run the tape through so many times, so get it as right as you can in the first pass or two and call it a day. I agree with that. Oh yeah,
That's right, Brad. I've learned to let go a lot recently. It's just like,
Yeah.
that vocal take wasn't perfect, but it works.
yeah,
So you
Yeah.
keep it. You don't sit there redoing it. 10 times. It's like you do it. It's for the first or second time, and you're like, you know what? It actually captured the vibe, and I'm gonna keep it. And you just commit.
and I'm like personally, this is like a progression thing for me. I treat everything that I do as practice for what I will be doing next as well. So when I make something, I don't want to practice taking a week on a vocal take or something like that. I want to practice doing something in an hour, and so when I get good at it, I'm good at doing it in an hour rather than a week. And you also get to practice that whole process, which is what I like. Another thing with the beat making, in 1.5 hours or whatever. Every time I do that, I practice getting inspired at the start. I practice, starting off the track. I practice arranging it. I practice making the drums, and I practice mixing, mastering, and then bouncing it all. All of that gets practiced in one day, rather than, only kind of practicing the procrastination side where you're like, oh, is this melody perfect or whatever. I don't know. It's an opinion thing, but I'm sure there's bands on both sides of the or music acts on both sides of the coin that adhere to both ways of thinking, but personally I'm on the faster side.
Sick.
Actually, I was reading Kanye West's biography, and the song Stronger, his biggest hit. Apparently that had, it's like 78 different mixes from numerous mixing engineers over 3 different cities before he hit the final take. So I mean, that was a pretty fucking amazing song. But then I wonder, like, how good were the other mixes?
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
78 different mixes. Which
That's correct. Is it? Hang on. That's the one with. That's the Daft Punk.
Yeah.
Edit.
Yeah.
What were they like? What were they mixing? Just I guess his vocals over a somewhat.
No, there's quite a lot of other stuff in there. Like he added a lot of elements. Apparently, a lot of it was getting the bass right. They wanted to. He wanted to get the bass guitar right in there. Apparently, there's bass guitar in there. I didn't even.
Yeah.
Didn't even trigger to me that there was. But yeah.
Yeah. No, that's sick. That's really cool.
But,
I mean, it showed there's pros and cons with, like, when it comes back to perfection. Like, you hear stories of people that took ages to do something, but then it was one of the best decisions of their life, and it's the best piece of art that they've ever created. So I guess it's whatever works for you. Some people operate in a more of a elongated process and more sort of down to the nitty gritty kind of way. That's how they operate, and that's how the best they capture the best of themselves and the best takes and the best form of their music is through trial and error over and over and over again. But I remember have you guys heard, The Sound of Silence by Disturbed?
Yeah.
I remember like reading up about that, and the engineer who recorded it, the singer of Disturbed, literally like rang him and just said like, "Hey, get the studio ready. I want to come over and record something." And I think the actual studio version is like the second or third take of him singing that song.
Wow.
And he was just like that, like bang, and then they just did guitar, and then he was like, "Put it out. That's something I want to put out."
Insane.
And it's like, I love that. It's like I love The Sound of Silence on its own. It's just a fantastic song. But I remember when that Disturbed cover came out, and I was like, "Holy crap! Like this sound like his vocal range is incredible, and it sounds awesome." And yeah, and apparently, yeah, he just did it on a whim and just went, "Yep, like whatever, two or three takes, bang, put it out," and it sounds freaking awesome. So
Yeah.
it's just
So sick.
It's
It's like the Kings of Leon.
Yeah.
When they I think it was their second album with Sex on Fire.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they went in with everything but Sex on Fire.
Yeah, right.
And then I'm pretty sure he had a broken hand, so he only had 2 like working fingers. And that's why that riff at the start is only just kind of like 2 notes, like because he couldn't actually play anything more than that. And then literally he was just like, "Oh, can you guys just hit the red light for a sec? Because I've come up with this riff."
Mm.
And then within a few hours, they smashed out "Sex on Fire," which was their biggest song of all time.
Yeah, it's
And
crazy.
it was never on the album. You know what I mean? It was never intentionally on the album.
That's crazy.
yeah.
Yeah.
But like with those 2 examples you guys just said, there's like on the flip side of that, you've got like I was a big MJ fan. Like I was, Michael Jackson's like inspiration, all-time inspiration. Like Thriller, he was like, when he released Thriller, he was not happy with that, like how it sounded for so long. He released Off the Wall, which had like Don't Stop Till You Get Enough, Rock With You, like fucking bangers. He released that. He won, I think, 1 Grammy, and he was not happy with that. He was like, "This is shit." Like he went home crying. Then he went into the studio. He wins a fucking Grammy. Went into the studio, started writing Thriller, and I've seen heaps of documentaries and read up about it. He was just not happy with the sound at all for so long. So many different demos, everything, and he just obviously he was a perfectionist, and obviously like he just at the end, I don't know, like he just got there in the end, and he loved it, and then look what it got him. It got him one of the biggest selling albums of all time.
True that.
So it's like you can't go right with music. It's like you go like that, Kings of Leon direction where you're just like, all right, let's just do it, or Disturb, and just like, all right, just record it, and then it just becomes, like perfection in its own way.
Yeah.
Then you got the other side where it's like MJ was just like, he was just so anal about his approach, and he just wanted
Definitely.
to 100% right, and the guy walked away with 8 Grammys.
Yeah.
A year
Dude,
later, like,
there was another song, I think it was Human Nature,
yeah,
where it took 6 months to mix that track because every time he submitted it back to MJ, he was like, "Doesn't sound right. You have to change this. You have to change that."
Yeah.
It took him 6 months
yeah.
That's
And
insane.
to mix right.
There's so many different versions of Billie Jean, like mix wise. Like it sounded more like what was on Off the Wall, where it was more like a drum machine, disco type stuff. But you listen to it now, it's got like this modern thing to it, like that really warm bass, and then you've got like Beat It, which was a rock song, essentially on a disco album. You know what I mean? Like it goes either way. Whatever the music deserves.
Yeah.
Like Sound of Silence, that was a cover, and they changed it to like an orchestral piece. That's all it needed.
Yeah.
That's all it needed.
And with Kings of Leon's a rock song, rock needs imperfections.
Yeah.
With a pop album, that might need a bit more work. So it's whatever the music deserves, really.
I think
Definitely.
the biggest the biggest problem that a lot of aspiring artists have when it comes to this kind of thing isn't that they're aiming for perfection. It's that they don't know what they want yet.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
instead of they look at a track and they say, "This is good. What can I add?" rather than "This is good" and put it out. Or if they hear a track and be like, "I know that this needs this when I hear it." Like when I'm doing a beat, I know that when I'm going, "Oh, I should add something else," that's when it's done. because
Yeah,
like if
that's
I'm
actually
if I'm
way of
thinking
putting
that
it. That's
yeah, if I'm like,
perfect, yeah.
oh, should I add something else, then I know I shouldn't. But if I'm like, this is empty and it needs this, then I
Yeah.
know it does still need a little place to go.
That's actually a perfect way of putting it. Like, just say Michael Jackson again, for instance. Like, he had a vision and he wanted what he wanted. Like,
Yeah.
there was no ifs, ands, or buts. Like, he wasn't. Yeah, like you said, he wasn't reaching. He was like, oh, maybe it needs this. Like, he was like,
He knew it
this
wasn't right.
fucking need. And he was working with Quincy Jones of all people as well. Like,
So
like
good.
two absolute like being a fly on the wall during those sessions would have been incredible.
Insane.
So
Absolutely.
that's actually a really good way of putting it. Like, there's a difference between knowing what you want and thinking you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And your
Yeah.
taste gets better in time as well. Like what you know you want get like changes as you like learn new things, and
Yeah,
I guess you add to your arsenal of your like your taste. But I think if you're sitting there and you're being like, you're craving over the fucking fine EQs of a single guitar track for hours on end, then you probably need to reassess where your priorities lie when it comes to releasing the track,
yeah.
because nobody
Sure.
cares.
Totally.
We just got very philosophical about music.
We did. Well, I mean, that's what this whole thing's about.
He's got real love it.
We've all been making music for quite a while, so it's good to share
it's
these
good.
ideas.
It's good.
Well, speaking of which, I've got a new topic. Unless anyone's got anything more to say about that last topic.
Go for it.
Inspiration.
Oh.
So you sit down, and I'm going to start with you, John.
Yeah.
You sit down and you say, I want to write a beat, or I want to write a track, or whatever piece of music. You have no ideas currently in your head, but you want to get them. What do you do? Like, how do you get yourself prepped?
You're ill-equipped, John.
Yeah, just throwing that one at you.
I think for me, it's I create when I feel inspired, which isn't never. Like, I'm most of the time inspired. Like, I'll listen to a track and go, holy shit, I like this vibe, I like this sound. So I don't know, like, I guess it's a hard question to answer, because it's like I'll usually sit down at my laptop when I am ready to go, sort of thing. When I have at least a few ideas ready to go, because there's days where I'll bust out like 3 ideas in a row, like different sessions.
Yeah.
I guess when I'm not, I think it's just listen to stuff that does inspire you.
Maybe I'll rephrase that to, what then do you find? What do you find triggers you to be inspired to make music?
I don't know. I guess.
I'm happy to jump in, John. If you
Jump in, young Riley.
Yeah.
No, I was just gonna say, I think I mean, for me, like, this might also cross over into the topic of like sort of tips and tricks, but this kind of coincides for me specifically, and this might just apply to myself. But coming from a more sort of sound centric way of writing music, I think like if I jump on, like, obviously the same as John, and probably the same as everyone here, if we're inspired, we'll just sit down and write it because we're inspired, full stop. That's all you need. Whereas on those times where you feel like making music, but you don't really know what the hell you want to do in those circumstances, what I find is I say again, it's just sort of comes back to the sounds and ideas and stuff. But like, what a cool little trick that I've kind of worked out is if you sort of take a percussive hit, or maybe a stab, or a vocal chop, or so, just pick a sound. Go through, like, I'm sure we've all got hundreds of gigs of samples and stuff that we've downloaded over the years. Go through that, find something that you like, and then basically put that on a channel and put a couple of effects, or even just one effect that you like, whether it's a distortion or a bit crusher or a delay or a reverb, something super simple. Put that on a channel and then essentially route that channel to a new empty audio track and just hit record. And then play that sound, and as that sound is playing, just tweak knobs, tweak reverb tails, tweak distortion, tweak resonances, tweak cutoffs, and do it live. And then once you've printed it, you can listen back, and you'll just have this organic, weird, shit sounding mess that is now that you have that file. No one on earth has that sound file. You now have that sound file, and I find that doing stuff like that really sort of helps me, because it's like, you can sit through and go through, your serum bass presets and, this sounds sick, but probably 400 people have probably done a track based on that sound anyway. So if you sort of grab even a melody, say you grab a melody and put it in operator or analog or something, or some of the like Alchemy or something for Logic users, and you just write a simple little melody that on its own sounds kind of shit. Before you even start getting to the stage of, this needs reverb, this needs compression, this needs blah 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 blah, just put any effect on it, a delay or whatever, and just hit record and start tweaking it and print it to audio. Don't just automate it, because then you'll just end up in a loop of, this doesn't sound good, that doesn't sound good. Just print it to audio and commit to it. And that's what I've done a couple of times. I've taken atmospheric or vocals chants or whatever and just destroyed them with delay and turned up the decay and the feedback and whatever, and they're just inaudible messes of sound. But I've written entire ideas around it, because it's like, cool, I literally just created that, and no one on earth has heard this before, and no one on earth has this sound. And I find that can be quite inspiring. But that in terms of not necessarily listening to a song and going, I just want to replicate this song, in terms of sort of like inspiring myself from triggering myself, if that kind of makes sense. Not being
from experimentation.
It's an internal trigger rather than an external trigger. I'm not externally being, obviously if I listen to a funk track, or if I go off and listen to, like Frank Sinatra or something, like I'm getting externally stimulated and going, I want to make something like that. Whereas a lot of the time, if I sit down and don't have that external idea, I'll sort of almost just force myself to shit one out, if that makes sense. And so, and I find, little tricks like that where you kind of don't know what you're doing. You're kind of just throwing a sound in a little random sound generator and seeing what comes out the other side can actually be really, really helpful.
That's fucking sick, bro. I really like that idea. That's
it's really cool.
Yeah, I'm going to use that.
I've never done that before.
Yeah. That's super cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
John, he just fucking shat all over you. What, like,
Dude.
where's your idea? Oh no, I'm always inspired, bro. Don't worry about it.
I'm comparing to say, like you, Lockie, like you sit down every day and you want to bust out as many beats as you can in that time. Like you might feel more like that than I will, because I'll sit at my system when I am inspired and go, I'm gonna make a fucking track today.
Yeah.
Whereas with you might sit down and go, all right, I want to do this. Like it's like going to work, right? You're going to work, but you don't feel it.
Yeah.
Whereas I haven't felt that. I haven't felt that way, because when I'm sitting down on an Ableton session, I'm fucking ready to go. Like I've heard a track that I'm really inspired by, or like just say when I exercise and work out, I'm usually listening to stuff that fucking pumps me up.
Do you
that in itself will get me inspired to like make something like that?
Do you ever have any tricks that, like, say you're mid session and you're like and
I've lost it?
You hit a wall and you're like, I don't know what to do right now. And do you have any tricks that you go to after that?
I do. Like from what I said before, just give it a bit of love.
Yeah.
That may be like, just go through your chain, like, I don't know, fuck around with your kick, or like do a bit of a rough mix. Like that might make it sound better overall, that you want to keep going. I don't know. That's just what I found. Like if you just keep on giving it love, somehow you'll come out the other side and go, like I said before, holy shit, I was going to ditch this idea 2 hours ago. I'm glad I didn't, because now I've got this cool idea.
Yeah.
other tracks that have inspired me that day or whatever. Yeah, it's just weird. It's happened before where I'll be mid session and I'll be like, yeah, whatever. I don't really dig this idea, but I'll just work on something else in that session, or it's okay to have a break from it. Go watch a Netflix fucking go watch you can have a break from it. It doesn't need to be done that day. You know what I mean? Like, most of us have like that freedom to go, all right, well, I'll work on it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Have a break from it, because sometimes when you revisit it, you'll either notice what's wrong with it, or you'll be like, holy shit, this is actually good, because you've given your ears a rest from it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tiny vessels.
Yeah, there's kind of the three main points for inspiration that I've kind of realized as I've been listening to you guys. Going for a drive, because that's when I tend to listen to music very deeply, and I also sing along to music very deeply when I'm driving. So whenever I'm driving, I tend to come home and I feel inspired because I've been listening to songs I love, and I'm like, well, why do I love these songs? What are the things I love about this track? And I'll start analyzing stuff, and I'm like, I just need to go home and write a track. And that's like one of my big ones. Going for a run, and I'll be listening similar kind of thing where I'll be analyzing a track while I'm running, and I'm like, why do I actually like this song? What is it about this song that I like? What can I capture from this vibe, without just directly stealing the song, of course. But like, what are the ingredients to this song that I'm like really vibing?
Your sex is on fire. Perfect.
And one of the most common ones, especially over the last few months, is being live shows. I'll Google, like, I'll go on YouTube and just look up a live concert of my favorite artists, and that just like brings out this whole different vibe in me. I'm just like, I get like I almost get gig envy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I need that.
I was literally.
I want that feeling that they're having right now, and I'm like, I need to
about
write a
that.
song as good as that. So I'm like, well, now the bar's up here. So I'm like, well, I need to write something amazing. So I'll just start playing, and I'm like, what's sounding good, and then it just snowballs from there. So those are kind of like the three main points. Other than like writing with somebody else, obviously that's a mindset of me just writing by myself, but that's kind of where I'll start for inspiration, for sure.
What were you
But
saying?
I know that Lockie in particular, actually, you get your inspiration from quite a few different places, dude.
Yeah. What were you just saying before, John? You were gonna jump in.
No, I was literally going to add to my answer before. Yeah, like watching live shows.
Yeah.
And live concerts like that, like watching people react to other people's music. That's like
The best.
That's another thing.
The best,
Like,
dude.
any form of music will get me inspired to write any form of music. Like, I can watch Radiohead live at Reading and be inspired to write a track that's like Rufus, or like it's like that inspires anything. It's not like, you know what I mean? Like, just seeing anyone's reaction to any form of music will inspire me to write any form of music.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And
100%,
it's like, it's not only just watching
that's
live gigs on YouTube. It's actually, if you've gone to a show, like you've gone to a concert, and you come home and you're like, man, I just need to write something right now.
Like,
it's the best feeling.
It's like, we've all gone to so many gigs before. Like, we just have this euphoric feeling when we're at a gig, seeing an artist we really love. That gives you that motivation to go, holy shit, I want to give that feeling to people.
Absolutely.
That could also just be the drugs, but
Yeah.
Nobody does
Right,
drugs.
everybody.
What are you talking about?
100% though. Yeah, that's a good point.
That's a good answer, Trav. I love that. That's
Oh yeah.
Hundo P.
Yeah. Well,
100.
I'm gonna,
100.
as someone who, like, I am in that spot where I have to force myself to be inspired. which is like really easy now. Like back when I started, it was a challenge. When I first said I'm going to make a beat every single day, it was a bit of a challenge, like to be inspired enough to make a beat. Now making 4 a day, it's just gotten easier and easier, and I'm still using the same kind of ideas that you guys are talking about, and I guess I use a mix between what you're talking about, John, and also what you're talking about, Riley, about the I'll usually use I'll listen to someone else, and I use this process to listen to something new that I've never heard before a lot of the time. So one thing I like to do is I go onto BeatStars, which is the page that I sell my beats on, and there's a thing where you can see what the most searched terms are for beats, and so there'll be a whole bunch of artist names in there that people are searching for, and I'll pick one that I don't really know that well, open them up on Spotify and listen to their top 5 tracks and find the one that I like the most. And I'll as I'm setting up my session, because the whole setting up a session and setting up a live stream, all that kind of stuff takes a bit of time, I'll just have that song on repeat that I like, and I'll sit there and it'll be in the background. I'll listen to little parts and I'll hone in on one section of it that I'm like, I love, like that 808 melody, and I'll kind of go in with the idea of like, how can I use that kind of idea and turn it into my own, and then build a song around that. And so that's a kind of a trick I use in a kind of like forced way, where I have to I have to be.
No, that's and I think like even going further than that, I think I know John is very fond of this idea as well. But like when literally using a reference track and almost whether you download it from YouTube or whatever means, you download a song that you love or that you want to replicate, you literally stick it in your session and you have it as an audio file in your session that you can always A/B between. And if you want to go even further than that, you can literally use that as a map to lay out your whole song. You literally, when their song builds up, your song builds up. When their song drops, your song drops. And it's not cheating. Like, I mean, it's not super creative, but by following how some of the artists go about creating their music, you're able to learn along the way. And you can literally use their track as a blueprint for something on your own. And it can really help you, especially with that whole getting stuck in a lull or a rut, where you're like, dude, does this need more? Does this need less? You can really listen to a song that you love and that you want to replicate, and almost layer by layer, instrument by instrument, copy them, not melodically and not tonally. Of course, make your own sounds, make your own progressions, make your own bass lines. But if they bring in a crazy chord part with a bunch of arpeggiators, then do the same, but make it your own. And then by doing that, you're sort of teaching yourself along the way. And then when you later down the track, when you have those sessions where you do get a bit stuck, you can think back to, I remember that track by I did like Cascade, and I copied one of their tracks. In this part in the song he did this, or at that point of the song I did this, so I'll try that again. And then eventually down the track, you'll have your own amalgamation of little tips and tricks to fill little voids in songs that you won't even have to think about, because you've kind of taught yourself along the way.
Yeah. One thing, adding on to that, one thing I've done is gotten like a rap a cappella.
Yeah.
And written the track around, like the instrumental around that a cappella, like working off their flow and where they drop off and all that kind of stuff, for that. And then you get rid of the vocal, and you just got a beat now. A great beat. Yeah that that it will work well with someone.
For sure.
Definitely, there's definitely times I've done that where I've analyzed the structure of a song and I've used that blueprint, as you were saying, Riley, as one of my own. But like, obviously musically and tonally it's completely different, it's nothing alike, but the structure itself
the
gives
arrangement
you new ideas. And even I've found recently, and this is something I've only been doing really this year, is replicating songs, like as they are, trying to replicate that song exactly. And even doing that process has taught me a lot of things about just processing channels in a really weird way, or finding instruments that you would have found. All of those kinds of like these different techniques that I've discovered by just trying to replicate somebody else's song, which is a really cool way of like trying to learn something. Like I would never really release anything like that, but just like doing it in my own time kind of thing. It's just like, it's taught me a lot about even just synths, and stuff like that, which is really cool too. So
That's sick.
I know. I just quickly to add to that. I know. Speaking of synths and sort of studying up on structure and stuff. I know, like John was talking to me the other day about how sometimes if you really want to sort of help accelerate any sort of creative ideas, sit down for a session that's not necessarily a songwriting session. Sit down for a couple of hours and just like open up a synth that you like and just hit in it and just create a bass and save it, and then create a lead and then save it, and then open up, slap down a whole bunch of samples. You put down, 3 or 4 kick drums and some Foley effects or some claps or whatever, and affect the shit out of it and try and make a really sick sounding bass drum with like 4 different samples. Bounce it. All right, that's a kick drum 1. Do it again. And then just spend like a whole afternoon that you would creating a beat, just making sounds. And then next time you sit down and you're a bit lost, you'll have all these sounds and samples to pick from that aren't just the same as what everyone else has. You know what I mean? And like,
well, me and Lockie actually touched on that. I think it was the last podcast actually.
Yeah, right.
Where I'm definitely guilty of that, where I'll just be like, you know what, today I don't feel like writing a song. I just don't. I'm not inspired. I don't feel like writing a track, but I do, however, feel like making cool sounds.
Yeah.
And I'll just go through and make a new drum kit preset on Addictive Drums. I'll go through and make a few different guitar tones.
Yeah.
That I'm inspired by, and all that kind of stuff, and you just add to your arsenal, and then before you know it, when you go to songwrite, you've got all these extra tools that just you go straight to, and you're just like, oh my god, that's exactly what I needed at that point in time. So
yeah,
definitely, I can relate to that.
Yeah, that's a really cool idea. I should definitely be making more sounds.
Yeah, it's just like sometimes you don't necessarily feel like writing a song.
True.
Yeah.
And that's all right too, like as a creative kind of person. You shouldn't always be expected to, write a full track or write a track at all. It's only part of it, right?
Yeah.
Another thing is like go on YouTube and find some fucking free sample packs, because for me, like free new sounds will generate new ideas. Like you will find like some cool, I don't know, bass hits or drum hits or percussion or synths. Like you spent no time and money on them. Like you just got them now, and that can just generate a new idea.
Yeah.
Find some new sounds. Like I got some free synths recently, and that just helped me along with an idea that I had. It's like, especially in electronic music or whatever, like you can find inspiration by finding sounds, really.
Actually,
Absolutely.
there's a website that sells very high quality, cheap sounds from a friend that we have at work called slammingsamples.com.
Oh yeah, boy.
And
Timmy can.
I think this is like the 3rd time I've plugged him on this on this podcast.
I think we plug him at least every episode. And he deserves it. He's a legend.
Yeah, and man, I use his samples, so like I ain't just saying that. But yeah, if you are looking for like good quality samples, there are lots of places to find it. One of them is slammingsamples.com, where he's sampled a whole bunch of classic instruments that he owns and done high quality replicas of those. And there's like 96K audio files of all of them. So I think you can pick them up for a couple of dollars per pack.
Yep.
So that's insane. And once you got that, you've got really high quality shit to be working with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep,
yeah.
sure.
there's no lack of sounds, I think, in this world. Like,
Ooh,
No, not at all. Not at all.
Even with like I've heard big production albums that they've recorded samples in their iPhones.
Oh.
And they've just taken it to their producer. And
I
been like,
was
"Hey,
showing John a video yesterday of a dude that made a banger out of his toilet flushing. So,
Joji, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Joji. He's,
yeah.
He's quite a big artist right now. He's using GarageBand
Yeah, I've heard that.
to make all his tracks, and that's insane. Like,
Mm.
super consumer quality audio processing, and this guy's making bangers. And this dude is not lacking on cash. Like, he's been a star for quite
He
a
could
while.
buy whatever software he wanted.
Yeah, but he chooses to use GarageBand, and all the power to him.
Mm.
Got the fire.
Interesting.
Well, it's been 2 hours now, guys.
Gee.
What do we say? Do we want to wrap it up and leave the potential rest of this conversation for a future date?
Yeah,
I
for sure.
Yeah,
okay.
we delved
Oh,
into some really good topics there, so
Yeah. Who knew 2 hours could go so quickly?
got real deep.
All right, so yeah,
Oh, yeah.
we'll leave it there, and we'll say thanks for watching, guys. Any final thoughts from anyone? Anyone want to plug anything in particular right now before they go? We got the Colby's on SoundCloud, Spotify, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we do.
We got John Compa with his solo stuff. We got Riley Michael with his solo stuff. We got Tiny Vessels and Tiny Mountain up in there, and your boy NoisySauce.
No, sweet.
That's about it. All right.
Cool.
Non-social distant version is what Not Daniel wants. So maybe we'll
Maybe we'll do it in the same room next time.
yeah, maybe we'll do it in the same room.
Do that now, can't we? Yeah, sweet.
We can.
Absolutely.
Yeah, awesome.
I'll tell you what I'm looking forward to is watching our boy. What's the dude's name that we watched last time?
Mark Ribbier.
Mark
Riviere.
I want another Mark Riviere session.
Dude.
That guy. That is inspiration right there.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's a whole nother episode, I think.
Yeah.
Just that guy.
Just us talking about what he's doing.
Yeah,
We should do a
Next
live
level
stream
shit. Next level shit.
where he's live streamed on our live stream, and it's us discussing the live stream.
Yeah, just meta as.
Yes.
See.
Let's do that. Let's absolutely do that.
Hell yeah. All right, well, let's shut this down now. I'm going to say goodbye to everybody. Thanks for watching, and until next time, have a good one.
See you
Peace
guys.
out. Thanks for watching, everyone.